Welcome to the SwimStrong Dryland Podcast. We are dedicated to inspiring and educating the swimming world. Our podcast highlights the work, character, and achievements in and around the SwimStrong community.
I am excited to bring Erika Pelaez and Kaii Winkler on for the SwimStrong Dryland Podcast, both from Eagle Aquatics, a.k.a. EP, a.k.a. the Slim Reaper. But before we dive into getting to know you guys a little bit more, we got to do our rapid fire questions. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Favorite cartoon character?
Minions, if that classifies as a cartoon.
Spider-Man.
Oh, on cue. Favorite stuffed animal? And if you have a favorite stuffed animal, does it have a name?
They don't have names, but Baby Yoda and then the tiny Baby Yoda.
I have a teddy bear, and its name is Teddy.
Classic. Favorite candy?
It would be like the Nerd Cluster ones. I really like those.
Same. The nerd gummy clusters.
Those are clutch. What's the best Halloween costume you've ever worn?
I dressed up as Winnie the Pooh when I was like 2 years old, and it's really cute.
My mom painted a skeleton face on me, and I liked it.
What's the funniest swim meet memory you've ever had?
It was at Phillips in Cali last year, and there was a spider in lane 8, and like I kept like referring to it before my races because I thought it was like a good luck charm.
That was a massive spider.
It was.
When I was like 6, I went to my first swim meet, and I got in the water for like a backstroke 25. It was actually Thanksgiving Classic. So then they say like heat 1, take your mark, go, and everyone goes, and I thought that meant only lane 1. So I didn't go. Hey, but I still won the 25.
What's a hidden talent
Impressive.
What's a hidden talent that you guys have that no one knows about?
I could stand on like my toe knuckles and like I could walk around in it. Like I took my toes back. It's weird. That's the only thing I have.
Strong toes. All right, Kaii.
I can play
Yeah.
piano and guitar, and I'm good at video games.
What is the hardest set in the water you've done at Eagle Aquatics?
We have this set where it's 4 100s followed by a 400, and we do it like we do either do 6 rounds or 8 rounds, and it's like horrible every time. It doesn't get better.
The long I am set.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Same. Equally agreeing
yeah.
there. There you go, Coach Adam. You got your hardest set. All right. Last but not least, what's your favorite thing about SwimStrong?
I love the community it brings. Like everyone gets along so good. Like you don't even know each other, and you know, like you guys work together on all those sets all the time, and it kind of brings you all together across the country.
Yeah, same thing. Kind of. I also love the hype it brings as well. Whether like with the camp or practice, just it's always fun to get to work in.
Hype. Let's go.
So
Well, thank you guys for answering the rapid fire questions. Awesome job. So people got to know you a little bit outside of the swimming world. But I'm really excited to have you guys on here. You guys are seasoned vets of the SwimStrong Dryland program. You guys have been in it for 5+ years now since you were just little things. And it's been really cool to see your guys' development over the years. And I think I really want people to get an inside look at how you've gotten to this point in your career, the things that you've done. You know, I think people probably see things on social media. Maybe they've seen you at a swim meet, breaking a national age group record, or being the youngest person to qualify for Olympic trials, or setting a world junior record, or whatever it is, doing all kinds of crazy things. But I don't think that people realize the commitment behind the scenes that it takes to get to that point. So I really want people to just get some insight into your lives, your story, your day-to-day. And so it's going to be really awesome. But first, can you guys just share why you started swimming? We'll go Erika, then Kaii here, just to keep it simple. But why you started swimming in the first place, how you got into it, when you fell in love with the sport of swimming. What's that journey been like up to now as far as like why you swim in the first place?
Yeah, so my parents wanted me to learn how to swim, especially living in Miami since there's so much water. They just kind of wanted me to know the basics so I wouldn't drown, just water safety. And I would dance. I did like 3 different dance classes and swimming. I wasn't really into other sports. And I was like 5 years old or six, and I had told my mom that like I really didn't like dancing. I didn't like playing the piano. I didn't like just things that like they weren't active enough for me, and I really like swimming, and I started to focus more on that. And I ultimately like quit everything except swimming, and I kind of just went on with it, started club swimming, and it took off from there.
It's awesome. How about you, Kai?
Yeah, so when I was around 6, we used to live on the beach in a building, so we were right on the beach, and my dad had known how to surf and kind of wanted to teach us. So we started, and it was kind of trouble because he would always feel worried when we fell off because we didn't know how to swim, being so young. So kind of just started training us in our community pool we had there. And then we joined a local club, and same, just progressed really fast. Saw talent, and yeah, kept working at it.
So both of you guys actually have a similar story in that your parents helped get you involved because they wanted you to know how to swim, so you didn't drown, so that you were safe, which I think is super important. And it's a important skill for anybody to have. But it started with that. When was it that you started to enjoy the competitive side of the sport? So you guys started to realize you had some talent, you were pretty good at it, but it didn't start with you thinking, oh, I'm going to be the fastest swimmer. It started with you just your parents being nervous about you being in the ocean. So what did you enjoy about the sport that made you be like, hey, I want to do this? Not just that you noticed you had talent, but before that, what about it did you enjoy that you're like, oh, I want to keep doing this?
Yeah, so got way faster within like 2 years of not even like hard training, and kind of started taking off when I was 8 to 10, and I noticed like huge potential in myself. Seems silly, but at a young age, I did realize that, and I was excited for the future. But I really loved the feeling I got every day when I just finished my practice, whether it was easy one or hard one. Just that feeling of satisfaction, like knowing I'm doing something for myself and pushing myself every day. And then when I would go to meets, I would be like doing really well compared to the other kids, and I was happy with it. So I stuck with it, and yeah.
So you had a competitive nature from the beginning. You enjoyed the satisfaction of hard work, and you enjoyed winning and the feeling of competition.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How about you, Erika?
For me, I don't really remember when I actually realized that this is like a sport. For me, it was just a fun hobby, and I really liked beating the older kids on my first team. I was the youngest one in our older group, and I was racing like 12-year-olds, and I just thought it was fun to race them and beat them in practice, and I just thought it was a game. And then when I started going to swim meets and like winning sizzlers and realized that, it was a little easier for me to swim faster than the people in my group, I kind of was like, well, then what happens if I actually focus on training harder? And this was when I was like 8 or 9. So then I actually started realizing that by training harder, I could get faster and faster. And I think that kind of just helped. And then I would have good times at swim meets, and it would just kind of fuel me for practice. And I actually started realizing it was a sport now, and it wasn't like, yeah, I could actually have a future in this too. And my parents really helped me realize that I was talented, and with the support of coaches teaching me and correcting me, I think that's where it took off. And I realized, oh, I could actually be good at this too.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to hear from your guys' perspective as well. You guys, for a long time, have been competing against each other and pushing each other to be the best you can be. I don't know if people realize this, but when did you guys first meet? How long have you guys known each other, and what did that look like in terms of you guys pushing each other in practices?
Yeah, I knew Erika when I was around 9 already because I like read about her times, and I was like, okay. And then she joined one random day. I feel like it was like a rumor. I was 10 at Miami swimming, and kind of heard that she might have been coming to try out or just train with us. And yeah, she showed up. I was 10 years old. She was 9. And that's how we met.
and when she, so Erika, when you came in, a little more detail. What did that look like? You guys competing against each other and training against each other? Because I have some funny stories I can share, but I want to hear from your perspective.
There's actually a video of us like a year with I think it was like 4 or 5 months after I joined the team where I challenged him to a 400 free fast off the block long course. And he beat me by half a pool. But it was fun. We would do a lot of distance sets. And I remember we would always be racing it for like the first 200, and then he'd zoom past me. He was getting national age group records at the time. I was like getting like LSC records, but we used to always race each other in practice, especially in kick sets, and I would beat him. I used to beat him in kick sets, and that's something I brag about to this day. But
Can you still beat him in a kick set?
Between us. No, not at all. I tried to. It works for like a 25, and then he turns and it's over. It's like just pushing off the wall, he's ahead of me. But in my heart, I still think I could beat him one day.
Well, it was fun for me when I came in. I remember the first day coming on deck with Eagle Aquatics and then watching you guys train and push each other in practice. And Erika is hyper competitive and hated losing to Kaii or anybody in the pool. It didn't matter, guy or girl. And Kai's is more of like internal. Like you don't know that how competitive he is. He's not gonna like show it on his face, but like internally, like he doesn't want to lose. So it was just fun to see that dynamic of Erika, who's extremely outgoing and lets you know every thought that's in her head, and Kaii, who's very, very internal with his thoughts, but the competitive drive being the same, but just expressed differently. It was funny for me to watch from when I first came here. And I want to ask you guys a question because I think this is something that people, when you are talented, when you realize you're talented as a young kid, 9, 10, 11 years old, obviously most of that is just technique and feel for the water, because it's not like you're like animals yet in your training or anything like that. But you guys had really phenomenal technique and paid attention to those details. You're competitive. But a lot of times people, when they're really good, when they're younger, they never end up continuing to be good when they're older. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. The biggest reason is typically because of burnout or because you skip steps in the process. But you guys at each stage of development that you've been in have been extremely successful. And I think there's a lot of reasons behind that I could share from a coaching perspective, but I'm curious for you guys, like what has kept you in the sport, kept you driven, kept you hungry, and helped you to not fall into that trap of, oh, I was a fast, like 10 or 11-year-old, but then that's the only thing that I did. Like, and we can start with Erika this time. What are things that have helped keep you driven and continuing to grow in the sport at every level?
Obviously, as time goes by, I did realize it's a lot harder now than it was when I was 9, 10. You know, the competition, everyone's swimming so fast all the time, and there's more pressure. It's not, like a little league meet. But I think working hard and having a team that supports you is really what's helpful, because when sets get harder and you're tired and you have stress from high school, you have, the recruiting process, there's a lot of stuff and factors that affect you as you get older. And I think just focusing on your goals and knowing why you started in the first place is also so important, because if you don't remember why you're working hard and why you're there, it's easy to just slack off. It's easy to take sets easily if you don't have a purpose behind it. If you're just swimming laps back and forth, anyone could go easy for that.
Mm-hmm.
And having a team there that holds you accountable, especially when you're not trying your best on a set, having someone like saying like, hey, what's going on? Like, is everything good? Like, you know, all that really helps you because it does get harder as you go on. And the higher level you get, the more stress you have on all that. So I think it's really important to keep that all in mind. And it's good to take a break. Like if you're overwhelmed and stressed out about it, like take a day, reflect on what's going on, and, you know, remind yourself why you love the sport and why you started in the first place.
I like that. Remembering why you're doing it in the first place is something that I think people hear a lot, but don't actually do. Like stop and think, like you said, about why I'm doing this first place, because that's what's going to drive you ultimately is that purpose. So, but Kaii, what do you feel like? What can you attribute to that longevity in consistently being successful year after year?
So yeah, the burnout thing I used to hear a lot when I was younger. I would go to swim meets, and there were a lot of swimmers that were very faster than me, and kind of pissed me off. But I knew that they were faster for a certain reason, and I was smart enough to know at the time that I'll get faster than them because of their physique, and like I've been skinny since day one, and I knew that if I could just work hard and stick to it, that I can potentially get faster than them, and it worked, obviously. But yeah, just staying consistent with the whole process, especially knowing since a young age that everyone would always tell me, "Hey, your freestyle looks good. You have good technique," and I was like, "Thank you," but I didn't really realize at the time that it was actually like good. So yeah, just believing in myself and trusting myself throughout that process. Like I would tell myself that I wouldn't burn out, and I would just stay consistent, have the right support system behind it, and yeah.
I think being able to like having a foundation of good technique is so important. You can't outswim bad technique, right? Like if you got poor technique, doesn't matter how strong you are, how hard you train, like you're not going to be as fast as you could be. And so, you know, if you're listening, there's no way around that. You got to have good technique, and that's something that you can control. That's something that you can practice. It's something that you can work on. Certainly there's levels of natural talent, but when it comes to like the fine details, everybody can get better at their technique. And so I like what you said, Kaii, about having a bigger picture, because I think swimming, you have to be able to have a big picture mindset. Like, cool, you may be faster than me today or a year from now or 2 years from now, but one day, like I'm trusting that if I do the right things, I'm going to be up there. And so I think that's really important, because this sport, there's so many ups and downs, and it can't be understated how mentally taxing the sport is, because you have so many failures and at so many swim meets that don't go the way that you want them to go. And to be a really successful swim athlete, you have to be mentally tough in ways that other people would not be able to. And so I just think that's good for people to hear. What kept you guys consistent? What has kept you guys consistent up to this point? But I want to talk too about, you guys both alluded to a level of buy-in to the process and trusting the process. And I want to talk specifically about SwimStrong here for a second. And as far as your guys' buy-in and what you guys have done to be successful with it, because I think that's one of the hardest things for people to realize is all the little details that go into this. And like, are they really just doing SwimStrong Dryland for their dryland? Are they not going? They got to be like going off and lifting on their own on top of SwimStrong. They got to be like doing these crazy supplements. Like they can't just be like, you know, doing solid nutrition and sleep and mental skills and all these different things. And so Erika, can you give just an idea of, and maybe kind of from when you were 12 up till now, like what that process has looked like in terms of buy-in into the dryland? More specifically, just for athletes who are watching, like in the last 5 years, how many dryland sets have you missed?
I would say less than 10. Probably either
Yeah.
because I'm sick or because I had to do something, but then I did it at home. So like
Yeah.
I would just say like 10, less than 10
Yeah,
probably.
I was gonna say like I could count them on one hand, and the ones that I could count on my hand were because you shouldn't have been there, right? Because you were
Yeah.
sick and you shouldn't come and you shouldn't be working out. So like this is something that like I don't want to go over anybody's head. Like 5 years, I would argue you've never missed a workout that you should have been at. Like on top, where does that mentality come from and that level of buy-in? Like why did you trust that this was going to have a positive impact on you? And once you did start trusting, what did you start to see? Like, oh, if I'm consistent, this is what can happen. When did the light bulb click?
I mean, I think since I was young, I always had a good mentality towards consistency. Like, I felt bad if I missed practice to make excuses for myself because I was always very self-conscious that, like, you're not fooling anyone but yourself. So, I mean, like, obviously, when I'm dying sick in bed, it's like, okay, I physically can't go. That's not good for me. But I think the mentality of knowing that, like, at least showing up and trying your best in that moment, even if you don't feel amazing or it's not a good day, you're still trying your best and it might not be the best compared to other days that you've had, but with that mentality, it's the only way that you can progress because you have to put a little more effort every single day if you want to keep improving. You can't just stay the same. So with that mentality, I like even on my worst days, I think like showing up to dryland, I know that consistency is what's going to get me further in my swimming career.
Where did that mindset come from? Because you can't, it's not necessarily something you're just born with. Your mind has to be trained just like everything else. And so contrary to a lot of people believing, oh, either you have that mindset or you don't, not true at all. It's something that has to be developed and fought for. Where does that come from for you? Why do you have such a killer mindset?
I think my parents really helped me develop that since I was little. They've always had an amazing work ethic, and I know my mom and dad never make excuses for stuff like that. So that's how I grew up with my family. With that, that was kind of the way I was brought up. Like you don't make excuses for stuff. You show up. It's like, if you sign up for something, or like how I signed up, and I want to be, the best one day. You just have to, show up and put that work in.
That's awesome. Shout out to Juan and Eugenia. I hope they watch this. Kaii, same question for you. What from back when you were younger up till now, like what was some of the key moments maybe that helped you buy in to be like, I'm not going to miss dryland and I'm like all in, as opposed to like, oh, I wonder if there's something else I could do on my own that might be like better, or what was that for you that helped you get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I just progressed really fast, and I loved it. So I came every day.
Pretty simple. Once you see the results, you're like, okay, why would I?
Why would I stop?
But so you gave it a chance in the first place, though, right? It's something different. It's
Well,
something...
I was on Eagles, and you kind of joined, and I mean, why wouldn't I mean I'm there? I mean, why wouldn't I do the job? I wasn't gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna do it when you show up. No, yeah.
So I want to stop you with that because that's not always the mindset of people. Like it is hard for people to just be like, oh, like I'm buying into the process and I'm going to commit myself to 45 minutes a day, 6 days a week. I'm going to be a lot more sore than I'm used to. This is a whole nother step. And so where did that mindset come from of being like, hey, I'm trusting that this is good for me. I see what the results are. I see the logic behind it and the why behind it. But there is a difference between like, oh, I know this could be good versus like I'm committing to do it. So where do you get the mindset of like, hey, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be all in? Where does that come from for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my parents helped a lot. Especially my dad was a main support behind me throughout my whole career. Remember this one interview I did when I was like 10, when I won winter champs. I'll just say I was like so thankful that he takes me to practice with his car and stuff. It was so goofy. But yeah, he's always been there to support me, and he doesn't let me doesn't let me slack, and since a young age that helped me a lot to just toughen up, honestly. And I think it's kind of 50-50. Like it's myself, how I've kind of progressed throughout the years, but also my dad and my mom have helped a lot.
Yeah. That's awesome. So the importance of a strong support system, right? Family or friends, teammates, all those things play a big role in helping develop a mindset. But then, yeah, definitely something from within to an inner drive. It can't just be outside motivation, because that will only go so far, but you have to have that internal drive too. And I think that's something that if anybody came to a practice on deck at Eagle, seeing you guys train in the water with Coach Adam and on dry land with me, they would automatically see why you are where you are. Because there's a big difference between showing up and doing the work versus like being all in on the work. I think sometimes people get confused and they're like, I don't get it. How come I'm not as fast as Erika and Kaii or whoever, fill in the blank, that person on your team that is faster than you, that you're frustrated, and you're like, I'm showing up to practices too. I'm doing the work. I'm doing the dry land. And you might be doing the same sets, but the way you're doing them is very different. And so I just think, but that's an internal drive. That's a mentality that has to be fought for. And so talk a little bit about your guys's, I want to get more into your guys's mindset, because I think to me, that's the most fascinating thing about your guys's success. Because everything starts with the mindset, right? The way you think is the way you train, is the way you perform. It all starts with your thought process and what you believe and allow yourself to think about. So first of all, Erika, can you tell me some of the goals you have in the next year or something? What's the end goal? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you believe you can be?
Yeah, so I feel like this is like the answer that like everyone, like dreams about, like, oh, I want to be an Olympian. I want to have a gold medal. But for me, it's always been like, now that I'm older, it's been like, oh wow, like I feel like I could actually have a shot one day to make the Olympic team. And not only just make it, medal for USA and be on that podium for USA. So for me, like ultimately my end goal would to be like represent USA at the Olympics more than once, because like, Paris is coming up soon, and I feel like if I train really hard, I have a really good shot to make it on one of my best events and squeeze in there. But that wouldn't be the end goal, then I go off to college, and obviously I'm excited for my college career, and then I would have another shot to make another Olympics. And that's, if however that goes, I'll see how long I stay in the sport. But that's like ultimately my end goal, obviously the golden dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about for you, Kaii?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. But also, honestly, when I'm done with swimming, I just want to not have any regrets. So that's a big goal of mine. I don't want to look back and say I should have worked harder, because I feel like it's gonna haunt everyone.
Yeah.
Because you can always say that you're giving 100%, but was there really like? Can you really push? You could always push a little harder than you think you can. And throughout those weeks and months and years, those little days, you're like, I don't feel like it. They add up. So yeah, I don't want to regret anything when I'm done, and I also want to make the Olympic team this coming year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you guys are saying these things that a lot of people will be afraid to talk about out loud, which I think is important to be able to say out loud, like, hey, I want to do this. And like, if we get it, amazing. If we don't, who cares? At least you went for it. And but this is something that obviously you guys are both highly, highly capable of. Whether people out there believe it or not, doesn't matter to me. And I know it doesn't matter to you. And we just use that as fuel for the fire, right? But anyway, we got all kinds of things that motivate us and give us chips on our shoulders and things like that. But you have to believe in yourself. You have to be able to say those things out loud. But then that belief, this is where a lot of people can actually say that out loud too easily. But then what they do doesn't even come close to reflecting like the gold medal dream, right? Like there's having that belief and having your work ethic line up with that belief is a really important thing, because it's two things. If you have a goal that you're saying out loud, but your work ethic doesn't reflect it, you have to either change your work ethic or change your dream. That's it. It's one or the other. And so don't be fooling yourself. Don't lie to you. I think, Erika, you said this earlier, like you can't fool yourself. Like if you didn't work hard, like you have to go home and look at yourself in the mirror. And when you can get to the point where you can hold yourself to that standard, you're going to be really successful. So, but what's the mindset this year then, Erika, as far as, so you want to get to the Olympics, win a gold medal, represent Team USA, multiple times. So, but right now in this moment, what are things that you're working on that you're like, this is something I've been putting extra focus on, whether in the water, with dryland, or with your mindset, or sleep, or anything? What are the little things that you're doing that are going to take you to that next level?
Yeah, so one main thing is like I really struggle with like putting my phone down before bed. So I set like a new habit to turn my phone off before 10:40 p.m. It's been going okay. I struggle here and there, but that's something that I knew that I needed to change, because I need to sleep and rest more in order to be rested for practices. And for practicing too, like at swim practice, I realized that I go out pretty slow in my races, and I always have like a back half. So I've been trying to like go out and take it out hard during sets, and like even if I end up like, dying at the end of it, I'd rather train that way, to train myself to go out and hold it, rather than just saving up and sprinting the last 50. And I think that's something that will really help me, especially now that I'm trying to, swim the 100, 200 freestyle, and see how that 2 free goes. And that's not going to work well if I don't go out for it. So, and then in dryland too, I've been, pushing my weights, and I think that's something that I could always improve on, is like, I'm getting older and stronger, and I could, increase my weights more than what I was doing last year. So that's something I've been working on.
That's awesome. How about you, Kaii? What are some of the little details you've been focusing on?
Yeah, the last thing that she said, kind of same for me, pushing those weights up, especially on those pull-ups and the chin-ups. Those are hard. I'm trying to get heavier weights in dryland for sure. And my sleep has gotten a lot better since we've started on habit share, marking down those habits each night. Kind of staying consistent with that is kind of what helps the most for me, because I see our teammates check in, and then I'm like, oh, my turn, So, yeah, and also I've been drinking so much more water than I used to. I mean, dude, I used to go to practice with like a sip or a cup of water when I was like, I don't know what I was doing. And then I would always have a headache. I wouldn't be able to, I would push myself even then super hard, but I would have no hydration. So I don't know even how I did that, but yeah, it's much better now. Nutrition has been a lot better. Shout out Brittany. And yeah.
That's awesome. You guys are sharing tiny little details of things you're focusing in on practice, whether it be front end speed or back end speed, or pushing weights in dryland, nutrition, sleep, putting your phone down at a certain time. These are reasons why when you do get to the big meets and you're under the bright lights and you do things that are incredible, this is why it's happening, because you're not just showing up to practice and going through the motions. Like, you're paying attention to all the little details that are going to bring you to that next level, because you want it, like something that you genuinely want. So if you say you want something, like, you're going to pay attention to those little details. And these are the things that no one knows about. And it's why everybody else who's racing you should be scared, because they don't know all the things that you guys are doing behind the scenes. And that's only a fraction of it. But that's a mindset you have to have if you want to be great. What are the little things, the little boring, mundane things that I am willing to do to get things that other people don't have? And so I think that's incredibly important. So you guys have both made a lot of little decisions that aren't very little, but they're all really hard. They take a lot of discipline, a lot of consistency, and that's just something that I think is just challenging to do hard thing after hard thing after hard thing. Like it never gets easier, right? And so like Kaii, how did your mindset grow and change as you continued to choose hard thing after hard thing after hard thing?
Yeah, so when you consistently do something, things actually a fact that once you come back to doing something a specific number of times, kind of works as a system, right? So once you get that system going, once you get the gears up and going, like there's nothing that can stop you except your mind, right? So that for me was just hitting it hard every day. It kind of seemed like natural after a certain point, right? It becomes normal, and yeah, it hurts, but you're not thinking about it. You're just in the process. You're in the moment, and yeah.
So you've essentially learned to put your thought process outside of that specific moment where it's like, yeah, this is challenge for a hard dryland set, for example, or a hard swim set. You're going through it and you could be thinking about how much it hurts and slowing down or how you can't wait for this to be over. Where does your mind go when you're in pain, so to speak? Not injury pain, but like just feeling it.
My mind kind of goes blank. I don't really focus on the pain. I mean, Adam always says, don't focus on how you're feeling, just focus on finishing those strokes, finishing the technique well, keeping your technique throughout the dying process of the ending of the set. So yeah, like if you're gonna walk on deck and just the whole time say, "Ow, ow," while you're doing your reps, like come on, get out.
Home at that point.
You get to choose your focus is what I mean. You choose to focus on something other than the pain. I think that's a lot more productive. And
yeah. Also, sorry. Another thing I wanted to add was that when you're doing it all together with your team, a thing that helps me a lot is that sometimes I do struggle alone to get the practices in, especially the ones that are memorable. But when you're doing a set that, like yesterday, for example, just knowing that everyone is also dying is like, I'm dying, but everyone's also dying. So I'm not going to make up an excuse right now. I'm not going to say anything. Like, just suck it up and get through it.
Yeah, you have a bigger purpose too when you have teammates and other people that are looking up to you and you're looking to them too for inspiration. And so I think that speaks to knowing there's a bigger purpose to what you're doing. Erika, how about you? How have you seen making those hard decisions day after day after day impact your mindset?
For me, I know like any swimmer can relate. It's kind of like doing a hard set. Like if you have 3,100s, like the first 10 are going to be horrible, and then you kind of get in the rhythm of it. That was the same way for me. Like when I started making these changes, it's like at first it was like, oh, there's so much to do. Like, like I try to focus on mobility, nutrition, this and that. When you list off everything, it's really overwhelming at first. And then once you get in a habit of it, it's like a rhythm. Like you kind of like, you don't have to think about it. Like you don't have to think about drinking enough water. You don't have to think about pushing extra on the sets. Like I'm a very big daydreamer. So like I focus on my technique in the water, but like I catch myself like, I make fake scenarios in my head, and this gets me through a lot of sets. Like if we're doing like a long distance set, I pretend that I'm like anchoring like a relay for USA, and then I'm like, getting chased down by like another team, and like I just start like, it really distracts me. Like it honestly does, and I do that a lot on my sets. I don't really talk about it a lot to other people, but like I've always done that. Like I go in the water and like we're doing a hard set and I just start like daydreaming and like creating all these like scenarios that aren't really happening, and that just takes my mind off the pain and like really like gets me to push myself even more.
That's cool. Again, choosing your focus, you're putting it on something that is enjoyable for you and that pushes you to that next level, and you're focusing away from the pain and towards something productive. So well, I think people can oftentimes see certain things or people's lives through rose-colored glasses and think, oh, everything's amazing. They're so talented and they work so hard and blah, 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 blah. You guys have encountered obstacles that most people don't have to go through, right? Like this just hasn't been like a linear journey where it's been like, oh, I was so great when I was little and I've just continued to be great every single year. And I just got stronger and faster and my mindset was so much better it's not how it works. It's more of a roller coaster. People don't get to see that, and how you deal with the ups and downs determines, which direction ultimately you trend. But so, for example, you guys have both had some major life obstacles that physically and mentally impacted you, and in my opinion, could have derailed people's careers. So, Erika, I don't know if people know this or not, got into a really bad car crash. Lucky to be alive, honestly, after seeing what the car looked like, which was terrifying. And they thought she fractured her shoulder. There was a lot of things that happened in the car crash. Luckily, it didn't end up being like a crazy fracture, but terrible experience to go through mentally and physically. Kaii obviously almost got hit by a car riding his bike, broke both arms. Those are situations that a lot of people wouldn't be able to bounce back from, mentally and or physically. And so I don't know who knows that those things have happened to you guys, but like, it's not just been sunshine and rainbows, right? And to me, that tells an even more powerful story than any of the things we've talked about so far. So maybe, Erika, would you mind just talking about how you overcame that specific scenario and what that journey has looked like?
Yeah, so I actually learned a pretty good lesson that day, the day I got in a car crash after practice. It was one of those practices where I did not push myself enough, and I had regret on not giving myself the full effort in practice, and not even like 5 minutes after practice, we got total loss, car crash, and they had told me I had a fractured shoulder. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, I can't train. Like, team trials are next month. This happened last year. And then I was like, my last practice, and I didn't even give it my all. That kind of altered something in me, and now I make sure I leave everything in the pool, because you really don't know if that's your last practice. You don't know what life has coming for you. And I did struggle a lot mentally after that car crash, like, having to get in a car and drive 30 minutes to practice after a total loss. It was not a fun experience. We lost the car, and it was a whole struggle. And that year at team trials, I did not perform the way I wanted to. I was at a bad first race, and I did not get over it for the next 4 days of the meet. And it was a tough summer, but I put myself in the mindset, like, look, what happened to me was very unfortunate, and but I can't let that affect me. And that whole summer, I trained the hardest I could. I didn't qualify to represent USA in Hawaii, and that ate me alive. That summer, anyone that mentioned the word Hawaii, I would get upset over the word Hawaii. And every time I would hear the word, it would push me a little harder in practice. And with that help I got from my coaches and my family, I went to Phillips 66 in California, and I got over a giant mental block I was having in one of my best races. And I had best times in events that I haven't been able to drop since then. That I really overcame, like, the whole, like, traumatic experience and, the stress of it all. And it was like, you know what, this is a learning experience for me. I learned that I don't want to have any regrets at practice. Our time is limited on this planet, and I want to make the best out of it right now, because you never know what's coming your way.
What was that? You talked about you overcame mental hurdles in that year leading up to the Phillips 66. What did you do specifically that helped you in that?
So with the help of Coach Eric, he taught me a bunch of mental techniques, or the ways that I could reframe my negative thoughts during practice. So I was journaling every day after practice, my thoughts and ways that I reframe negativity. So if it was during a set where I would be like, oh, I can't do this anymore, this is too hard, I would reframe it with a positive thought on, like, right now, this is where I'm going to get better. This is where I'm going to get stronger, and I'm going to work on this, this, and that. And I would do that every single day. I did that the whole summer until like August, and I still do it occasionally when I struggle a lot. But now I do it automatically. Like, I don't have to journal it. Like, if I catch myself thinking negatively, I switch it with a positive thought immediately. And that really helped me swim like really hard sets with a good mindset, and really like it helps me in everything in life. Like if you could apply it to any single aspect, whether it's like a hard school assignment or life challenges, like it really helped me become more positive and not just have that much negativity in my life.
So you came from a terrible car crash, physical injury, fought back, did a lot of little things that people will never have any idea about, all the things that you had to do, mentally fought through, journaled every single night for an entire summer to work on growing your mindset, which takes a lot of discipline. I know some people who probably haven't journaled a day in their life. And then you got to go some best times and did some really cool things. And then later on represented Team USA at Junior Worlds and medaled in 4 events and but and then is the nice part that everybody sees, and sees your life through rose-colored glasses. They don't see all the other stuff. That is the most inspiring stuff to me. Your times aren't inspiring to me. What you did to get there and how you have carried yourself as a person through the journey is the most inspiring thing to me as your coach. And I just think it's really important that people know that. So thank you for sharing that. I know it's not like an easy journey, but I think it's really good for people to hear. And Kaii, how about yourself? So you're getting ready to go to team trials. A few days before team trials, you get in a wreck. You're in the hospital. You find out you have 2 broken bones, 1 in each arm. What does that journey look like coming back from that? That was, no more than 5 or 6 months ago. What has that been like since then? How you've utilized that or grown from that?
Yeah, that sucked a lot. And obviously, we're all human. We all get sad. We all get emotional. It's how we're built. So I'm not a robot. I didn't fall and break my arms and say, whatever. I'm going to just become a demon and come back like crazy. Obviously, I did work on myself for a little bit and strengthen my mindset. But I do remember that as soon as I fell, and as soon as when I was riding home to the hospital, when I was going to the hospital after I fell, I called Erika and I was like, "This is it. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm already 17. Like, it's gonna take forever." But time passes, right? It keeps going, and a week later, I showed up to start kicking. I got a waterproof cast and started kicking away, and I'm actually really thankful for the process because it's helping me strengthen my mindset a lot, and also strengthen my legs. So throughout this process, I think I did learn something. One, not ride your bike, but also I learned something within myself. So I'm really grateful for that. But yeah.
What were some of the tools you used to learn things about yourself and grow mentally during that process? So, okay, I'm physically incapable of pulling right now. I can't do normal swim sets. So you said you got into kicking and improved your kick significantly, which I can attest to. But from the mental standpoint, what are some things that you've done that you've seen this made me better ultimately, even if at the time it seemed like a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, before it all happened, I know I've always had a strong mindset towards everything I do, but there's always things that push you over the edge. I mean, I feel like everyone has their own experience that they can kind of relate to and come back to and always say, yeah, that's what changed me, and I feel like that for me, coming back and getting back to where I am now, is really just like, it's all part of the process, but it does motivate me to know that I can do anything I want to do if I really just put my mind to it. But as far as the tools I used, you did give me a great book to read, which I loved, and I'm thankful for that you did that for me. It was good. I think Erika helped me a lot too, because she also went through something really bad, so just having her there as well helped, as well as my family. And
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I appreciate you sharing your phone call on the way to the hospital and your mindset and the thought process, and because you are human and have all kinds of different emotions, thoughts.